Okay, welcome to another edition of Real Estate Investor Talk. I'm sitting here in Omanis. Nick Morgan is the CEO of Opportunity Private Capital. Opportunity of Private Capital, a company that raise finance and property developments here in the Western Cape. We've just spent 2 days at the Business Conference and we've seen everything political. We've got an election that's coming up in 74 days and everybody's saying, what's going to happen to South Africa Pty Limited?
Questions that some people have asked is, we're at the Business Conference. There are a lot of political speakers. Nick, are you that interested in politics? And my answer is very simple. It says any business owner in this country has to have a vested interest in politics because it affects your business, affects your livelihood, affects your strategy, it affects your outlook. So yeah, it's imperative that we're here. So to answer your question, just got to say hi.
Yeah.
And France has been at the forefront of looking at South Africa Inc. as a whole over the last 15, 20 years probably. And his outlook for the last 15 years, according to him, has been pretty bleak. And suddenly, his everything that he looks at has turned, and he's actually seeing a positive outlook for South Africa. Now we don't have time to go into detail here,
No.
but this is the guy who with his think tank are very informed about what's going on. Certainly a lot more informed than you and I are.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
he came out with some very pertinent points as to why he feels that there's a positive outlook for South Africa over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And that for me is the highlight. One thing that, as a Cape Townian and someone who has businesses in the Cape, is one of the highlights that I found was that he explicitly mentioned that the Cape area was going to be a new emerging economy of Africa. And you and I have been talking about that for a while, but to hear it from someone who's in that cauldron was really comforting to hear. They all seem to have strategies to combat any maleficence or any nefarious activities that might come out of the certain, let's call it, negative political agendas. So that gave me some comfort as well, because that's not stuff that we know about.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
We don't get to hear about their fallback options or what they're planning in the background in order to combat these things. So for you and I, that was particularly insightful.
It was. So let's move away from the, but your thoughts, I mean, just in terms of, some of the investor type approaches. I mean, we were also exposed to the likes of businessmen like Sean Summers. I mean, this morning we've seen Christo Visa. These guys are titans in the game of business and also real estate themselves, particularly Christo Visa. It's moved into that. So just your thoughts just on investing per se, and then let's move into the property narrative, and then we can talk a little bit about OPC. Definitely there's a certain bias towards, getting stocks, getting bonds and all this kind of stuff. And there's very knowledgeable people. They know their game. There's no two ways about it in terms of that. But it's interesting how the narrative and how they talk about real estate from a non-real estate person, because either you're a real estate person or you're not a real estate person. I just say it's one of the two, and you would obviously lean towards one or the other, but it's also an opportunity, I think, at some stage to have a great debate. But your thoughts, I mean, just in terms of, some of the investor type approaches. I mean, we were also exposed to the likes of businessmen like